Hey, Restore Hearts family. This is the voice of your host and producer, Tiara Sharma. And I'm so happy that you have joined me today for this episode. We're going to be continuing our series on mending mother-daughter relationships, a daughter's journey. And for the past few weeks, we have been going through a process called AFAR. That's AFAR. AFAR. This is the process that we've been using to jumpstart our healing journey of healing from pain, emotions, hurt, trauma, anger, all of these things that have arisen in us that have been preventing us from having healthy relationships with our mothers or with our daughters. So as we're mending our mother-daughter relationships, we decided that we were going to take the position as daughters as we go through this process together, because all of us have been a daughter, but not all of us have been a mother. And we really needed to take that opportunity to process those emotions that may have been hidden from childhood, that may have been hidden through some of those experiences that we've had as young adults and into our adult life. And so that was the first step and challenge for us in mending our mother-daughter relationships. So I just want to briefly go over those steps that we have gone through over the past few weeks, because now today we're just going to put it all together. I want to give you examples of what it looks like to put this whole process together in real time so that you understand how it flows as you begin to work this process and become more efficient in it. And so to just briefly recap, A stands for acknowledge. Remember, we must acknowledge the problems and the challenges before we can address them. How can we address what we don't know? We cannot. So acknowledge, that's the first step. Number 2 is forgive. Remember, we talked about forgiveness. And it's truly for your benefit, not for the other person. And then we talked about how the research shows us that not forgiving has so many detrimental, harmful consequences on the body, physically, mentally, emotionally. It's been known to cause cancer, arthritis, joint pain, autoimmune disease. And so once again, I invite you to do some independent research and look that up for yourself. Next is aware. We talked about being aware. Once you've acknowledged and once you've forgiven, now it's our responsibility to become aware of the thoughts and emotions that affect our behavior. The last part of this process that we talked about was retrain. Once we've done the first 3 steps, now we must learn to think new thoughts, which produce new emotions that lead to positive self-loving behaviors. So essentially, we're going to be building a new belief system. And that's the process of AFAR that we've been going through over these past few weeks. Now, let's put it all together. So if you're just joining us for this process today, this series, Mending Mother-Daughter Relationships, A Daughter's Journey, is based off of the conversation we had in January on the malice of matriarchy. The Malice of Matriarchy is my chapter in the 2-time best-selling, international best-selling book, Trapped Behind Enemy Lines in My Mind. And last series, myself and Mr. Donnie D.B. Reed did a 4-part series on the malice of matriarchy and the effects of women not healing from hurt, pain, disappointments, those generational things that we hold on to. If we do not heal from those as mothers, how we pass that down to our children. So these are some of the things that can come up in mother-daughter relationships that put a strain on the relationships over time. So after having that conversation, we wanted to give some direction and how we can start to mend our relationships after having these often traumatic experiences with our mother figures, and then even in some cases, mothers with daughters and daughters with mothers. It can go both ways, because if we're not doing that work to heal, then the mother ends up injuring the daughter. And because now the daughter has been affected with those behaviors, now the daughter is injuring the mother, and it can become this vicious cycle. So we want to break that cycle. And one of the ways we're going to do that is we've been working through this process AFAR. So if this resonates with you, I'm inviting you to check out my YouTube channel, subscribe. You can go to www.youtube.com/at Restore Hearts TV, and you can watch those episodes of The Malice of Matriarchy, and also to watch the previous episodes of this series, Mending Mother-Daughter Relationships, A Daughter's Journey, so that you can begin this process and start this process of mending your relationship with your mother or with your daughter, depending on your position. Now, I'm going to give you some examples of behaviors, thoughts, and feelings that are produced by the malice of matriarchy. So as I'm going through this process AFAR, I want to just put it all together so you can see how it flows. So the first example I'm going to give of acknowledge. I yell at my children when they do not do what I ask them to do. So this is the behavior that we're acknowledging. Now, the next thing you want to do within that sphere of acknowledging is to ask yourself why. And when you ask yourself this question, you want to focus on how you feel, not the other person's behavior. Very crucial. This process is self-reflective. A very natural thing when we're beginning this process is to focus on what they did to provoke you. But we want to focus on how you feel, because the reality is no one can make you do anything. I repeat, no one can make you do anything. When someone has a behavior that makes you feel a certain way, this is your alarm. This is your trigger to ask yourself, why does that behavior trigger me so bad? Why does that get on my nerves so bad? So these are opportunities for you to pause and then to turn that back on you and ask yourself, what's going on inside of me? So an example of what that why could be is because it makes me feel, and then you want to fill in the blank. So feelings are our emotions. So some things that could be happening now is because it makes me feel unappreciated. It makes me feel disrespected. It makes me feel like I'm not in control. It makes me feel I'm not being heard. So these are some of the emotions you could be feeling inside that will answer that question of why you yell at your children when they don't do what you ask them to do. So that next step is to forgive. After you've acknowledged that, you want to say something to this effect. I forgive myself for yelling at my children. Simple. But you have to mean it. You definitely want to mean it when you say that. So that's going to require you to give yourself grace. I forgive myself for yelling at my children, because sometimes these behaviors can try to cause what we call condemnation. They can make you feel shame or make you feel guilt. And we don't want to hold on to that emotion, because that emotion will keep us in cycles of negativity. So we want to forgive ourselves so that we can move forward in our new thoughts and behaviors that we're aiming to produce. So the next step is aware. So in this situation, I notice that I yell at my children because I feel disrespected by their behavior. So that's your why. When I come home from work, I yell the most. That's going to be important for you to notice. Are there times during the day where I notice that this behavior is more frequent? So that would be a big one for a lot of parents, because a lot of mothers, when you're first coming home from work, you've had all the stress of the day and everything going on. When you first come home, you just want to unwind and decompress and de-stress from the day. So that could make that a vulnerable time for you to not be as emotionally stable or as emotionally mature as you may be when you're not tired and when you're more rested. So you want to know that about yourself. want to know that about yourself. And then the last part of that process is retrain. This is something that you would want to say to help build up your new thoughts and emotions and behaviors that you want to produce. Now that you've acknowledged, now that you've forgiven, now that you've become aware, we want to build our new thought. So I choose not to yell at my children when I feel disrespected by their behavior. I give myself permission to feel emotion. I detach my self-worth and value from my children's behavior. I choose to train my children how to treat me and implement appropriate consequences as needed. So I hope you notice how that thought flows together as you go through that process. And now that I took the time to kind of talk through that first example, I'm just going to read through the next two examples and flow through them. I belittle my husband when he attempts to give me feedback and correction. I am afraid of losing control and being controlled by someone else, so I attack my husband with my words as a defense response. I forgive myself for belittling my husband and destroying my relationship with my words. I notice that when my husband starts to talk to me about my behavior, I shut down and immediately think he is attacking me. I choose to remain silent while I process my emotions. I choose to use my words to build up my husband and speak life over my relationship. I give myself permission to be corrected in love. My husband is not my enemy. I choose peace and unity in my home. I get very upset and have negative thoughts towards myself when I do not complete tasks in a specific time frame. My mother called me names and hit me when I did not complete the chores she asked me to do before she came home from work. I forgive my mother for calling me names and hitting me. I forgive myself for believing it was acceptable to receive verbal and physical abuse from my mother. I notice that I use adjectives like lazy, stupid, and unworthy to describe myself when I do not meet a deadline. My value is not determined by my performance. What I do is not who I am. I am loved. I am beautiful. I am a beautiful masterpiece. I am worthy to receive the love, honor, and respect I give. I choose to learn to love myself, honor myself, and value my life. I treat myself with kindness and I teach others how to treat me. So I've given you 3 examples of how we reverse the process. That's really what we're doing. Remember that mental health is what we think plus how we feel produces a behavior. So in these examples, we acknowledge a behavior that we don't like about ourselves, about how we're behaving with ourselves, with our children, with our spouses, because the malice of matriarchy, remember, it affects every area of our life. So as we're mending our mother-daughter relationships, we may notice other areas in our lives where we need to apply this process of AFAR. So as you acknowledge the behavior and address the why, you'll be able to go through that process of forgiving yourself, becoming aware, and then retraining yourself by building up new thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, and speaking that new behavior, that new thought, that new emotion that you want to see. Hey, so if you've been doing this process with us for the past few weeks, you know what time it is. It's time for you to grab your journal, grab your pen, and we're going to do some writing. We're going to release. Those first few episodes where we went through that process of AFAR together, I used that letter that I wrote my mother as the foundation. But since we've gone through that process and we've done those things together for the past 4 weeks, I want to take this opportunity for this exercise for you to use that process for whatever is coming up in your mind right now. Because remember, there are other relationships that may be coming up. Relationship with your spouse, relationship with your children, relationship with a sibling, that this process helps you to realize that there are other relationships that you want to mend too. So if there is another relationship or another thought that's coming up right now, I want you to take this time to go through this process. So let's go.
Thank you for watching this episode of A Star Heart TD.
Life is a journey, and there are many moments. Some moments are smooth. You flow through them effortlessly. There are other moments when life's challenges interrupt your momentum, yet you find the strength to get back on track, to keep moving. So even if you have to crawl to make it there, do it, because victory belongs to you. You are equipped to handle every part of the journey. You were created to overcome this. Don't give up. I love you.